did you think?
You know, it confirmed for me not only the strategic importance of us getting bin Laden, but also the symbolic importance.
Yeah.
The message that if you harm America, we will be patient, we will be dogged, but eventually justice will be done.
But, you know, he dies, but his ideology continues. ISIS is doing sort of okay. I mean, so 5 years later, how do you assess it?
Well, as I said earlier, I think that the ideology has not been extinguished. The world is still dangerous. In many ways, the Middle East is in a more chaotic situation, although that's not directly related to bin Laden. It's related to what was unleashed during the Arab Spring. And
were you surprised by that? Because it seems such a hopeful moment, and yet ISIS seems to have...
Well, I think all of us were surprised with the direction that the Arab Spring took. When I came into office, I think all of us understood the fragility of some of these regimes that were unresponsive to their people. There were not a lot of democratic outlets. There was a ideology that was anti-Western, that was brewing, and anti-modern in some cases. But I don't think anybody thought that necessarily Mubarak suddenly would have been out. And after Mubarak left, I think many of us were hoping that the spirit that was reflected in Tahrir Square, which was more liberal, and liberal in the sense of believing in civil society and believing in pluralism, that would express itself. And clearly it hasn't. And there was always the danger, which we knew from the start, that in places where there had been an active suppression of civil society, and where the only true binding credo was religious, that there was a danger that it would turn in a negative way. I think very few people anticipated the speed with which a lot of this happened, and the extraordinary consequences in places like Syria.
Next, you'll hear President Obama on his greatest fear. He tells Peter Bergen what is keeping him up at night about the direction the war on terror is going. Also, his advice for the next president.
What keeps you up at night now, and what should the next president be most concerned about?
I think that we have built a incredible structure of cooperation between intelligence, military, law enforcement that has hardened the American homeland. And the capacity of an organization like an ISIL or an Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula to carry out a big catastrophic attack is much lower. But as we've seen, you now have a proliferation of groups because of the power of social media. There is a mechanism to recruit volunteers that are already located in the West that are much more difficult, precisely because they don't engage in the same kind of planning. And what that means is that we've got to continue to be vigilant. It means that we've got to go after ISIL in its core, where it allows itself to maintain the illusion that somehow it's on the march. It's going to be important for us ultimately to take them out of Mosul, take them out of Raqqa, make sure that they don't have those kinds of safe havens where they can pretend that they're a state in some fashion. That will diminish their appeal. But we're going to have small groups, lone actors, who for some time, we'll continue to find this perverted ideology appealing, and we have to be prepared for that. We have to be resilient and not react in ways that makes the problem worse rather than better. We have to understand that the kinds of special forces and intelligence gathering that we saw in the bin Laden raid is going to be more often than not the tool of choice for a president in dealing with that kind of threat. That sending 100,000 troops to invade every country where an organization like this appears is going to be counterproductive and in some ways feeds the kinds of ideology that we're fighting. Most importantly, we have to stay true to our values during this process. We have to make sure that we're not engaging in the kind of knee-jerk anti-Muslim sentiment that we've heard from some politicians. We've got to make sure that the legal structures around our intelligence gathering and our use of predators is subject to oversight. It's not always going to be easy. It's not always going to be perfectly smooth. There are going to be times where, as president, you make a decision knowing that there are going to be critics and knowing that there's some gray areas and ambiguities that you have to deal with given the realities of the situation. But overall, I think we can draw a lesson from the bin Laden raid that we've got really effective people and a government that knows how to do this. And as long as we operate from a position of confidence and strength and are true to who we are, groups like this or individuals like this can't defeat us.
Thank you very much. That's good. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.